son wants his portion now so that he can be independent and do with it as he chooses. And what is that? A few days later, Jesus explains, the younger son gathered all his things together and traveled to a distant country and there squandered his property by living a debauched life. Luke 15:13. Rather than remaining in the security of his home, with a father who cared for his children and provided for them, this son goes off to another land. There he squanders all his inheritance in wanton indulgence, pursuing sensual pleasures. Then he comes into hard times, as Jesus goes on to relate. The son who was lost returns. Luke 15:11-32-200. When he had spent everything, a severe famine occurred throughout that country, and he fell into need. He even went and attached himself to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to herd swine. And he longed to be filled with the carob pods that the swine were eating, but no one would give him anything. Luke 15:14-16. God's law categorized pigs as unclean, yet this son has to work as a herder of swine. He is racked with hunger, which reduces him to wanting to eat what normally is food only for animals, the pigs he is herding. In the son's calamity and despair, he came to his senses. What does he do? He says to himself, "How many of my father's hired men have more than enough bread, while I am dying here from hunger? I will get up and travel to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Make me as one of your hired men.'" Then he gets up and goes to his father. Luke 15:17-20. How will his father react? Will he turn on his son angrily and scold him about the folly of leaving home in the first place? Will the father display an indifferent, unwelcoming attitude? If it were you, how would you react? What if it were your son or daughter? Illustration of the son who was lost. To whom does Jesus tell this illustration, and why? Who may be considered the principal character, and what happens to him? 86. The lost son is found. Jesus describes how the father feels and acts. While the son was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was moved with pity, and he ran and embraced him and tenderly kissed him. Luke 15:20. Even if the father has heard of his son's debauched living, he welcomes his son back. Will the Jewish leaders, who claim to know and worship Jehovah, see from this how our Heavenly Father feels toward repentant sinners? Will they also recognize that Jesus has been showing the same welcoming spirit? The discerning father can likely conclude from his son's sad, downcast countenance that he is repentant. Still, the father's loving initiative to greet him makes it easier for his son to confess his sins. Jesus relates, "Then the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy of being called your son.'" Luke 15:21. The father orders his slaves, "Quick! Bring out a robe, the best one, and clothe him with it, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. Also bring the fattened calf, slaughter it, and let us eat and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead, but has come to life again. He was lost and has been found." Then they start to enjoy themselves. Luke 15:22-24. Meanwhile, the father's older son is in the field. Jesus says about him, "As he returned and got near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants to him and asked what was happening. He said to him, 'Your brother has come, and your father slaughtered the fattened calf, because he got him back in good health.' But he became angry and refused to go in. Then his father came out and began to plead with him. In reply he said to his father, 'Look, these many years I have slaved for you and never once did I disobey your orders, and yet you never once gave me a young goat to enjoy with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours arrived who squandered your belongings with prostitutes, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him.'" Luke 15:25-30. Who, like the older son, have been critical of the mercy and attention that Jesus has accorded the common people and sinners. The scribes and the Pharisees. Their criticism of Jesus welcoming sinners has prompted this illustration. Of course, anyone critical of God's showing mercy should take the lesson to heart. Jesus concludes his illustration by relating the father's appeal to his older